Hey guys, this is Josh here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I have a very special guest with us, a wedding pro that's been in the industry a long time. And after hearing her stories, we were actually running very parallel paths. And so this is Carissa Kruse. I said it right?
Yep, yep.
Cool. Well, welcome to the channel here. So, your ads have been targeting me, and so I reached out to you and say, "Hey, let's partner up. Let's see what we can work together." And I know that you've been educating wedding pros for a long time now, and we're looking always to help our customers and our audience grow their wedding business. So I was like, "Hey, let's bring you on and learn more about what you can teach us."
Yeah, no, awesome. I'm super excited to chat with you and your audience.
Cool, Chris. So, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about us and how you got started? About
Yep.
yourself. I said us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Carissa Kruse. I got into the wedding world in kind of a unique way. But it's been about 10 years now, over 10 years, and sales and marketing is actually my background. And then I created a marketing company first, and then I kind of tripped into the wedding industry. And so I started with photography and invitations, actually, as far as my company went for weddings. And I took my sales and marketing background to build that up. And then we added photo booths, and then DJ services. So, and videography. So we added a few services. We no longer do invitations, and now we've expanded to from one state to three states as well. So it's been a fun journey and a fun building it and figuring out from the sales and marketing side what works, what doesn't work. And now I'm helping other wedding pros build their businesses because they were like, what did you do? Because I didn't have any experience in the wedding industry. I had no contacts, nothing. So I went from zero um, to where we built it today. So that's been kind of fun. So yeah, so now I'm just taking my experience and sharing it with the world and helping them be able to the business that they want. Because a lot of times they get into the wedding world doing what they really love, their passion, and then they end up, wanting to add on some income streams, things like that. And then, but they don't really know how to do the sales and marketing side, and that's what trips them up. And so that's where I kind of come in to help them get unstuck.
I love that. And that is true. People do get stuff with that, especially with social media and what to post and how many times to follow up. So looking forward to diving into a little bit of that stuff right now. So you currently run your photo booth business. I know you said you run in three cities, right?
Yep, yep, in three states. Yep,
Oh, three
yep.
states.
We're in
Yes, yeah.
yep, three states. Yep. So currently we're in Iowa, Colorado, and Missouri.
Cool.
Hmm.
So I know a lot of people get in and they want to conquer the land all over
Hmm.
like you have.
Yep.
What are some of the things, the signs that you knew that it was time to expand? I know obviously we talked a little bit about uh, geographically,
Hmm.
the population may have not been as big as, like Dallas is massive, right? Like you
Yeah,
you can have a massive business here and just only service Dallas, but maybe your
correct.
geographic is a little bit different. So what are some of the flags that people should pay attention to whenever they're looking to expand, or is it the right time? And if it is the right time, what's the next steps?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, being in Iowa, it's a little smaller. So that's where my husband and I were like, hey, we wanted to kind of branch out from Iowa. And so he had lived in Colorado previously. So that's kind of why we went to Colorado, moved out there. So I kind of bounce around between the three states now. But the one thing was that I looked at was, you got to look at your competition, how much competition is there out there as well
Mm-hmm.
for your area, and then look at how many wedding venues, things like that. You just kind of have to see where your exposure is. Like we have three photo booths in Iowa, and that was kind of tapped out, and we were using those three photo booths for the most part. So we started with one, and then we added kind of the additional two on. And so then once we kind of tapped out, I didn't feel like we could really grow past three photo booths, um, just because of the location and the amount of weddings in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that's where it was like, okay, if we're going to expand, then actually need to go. And same with our other services, like we kind of topped out kind of where we were at. So, because you're not going to get you're not going to get everything, right? You're going to only get a portion of the business. So
Right.
you can't monopolize it probably and get it all. So that's where we were like, okay, now we'll look at, you know, another location. So then that's when we looked at Colorado, and obviously Colorado is a really large location. Being Denver, Colorado Springs are kind of the two hubs that we service most often. We'll go to Estes Park and things like that too, but those are kind of the main area, and so those are obviously a lot bigger. Now, the thing with that was it took a bit of a little different strategy because it was a bigger location, so you have more competition and you have a lot more territory, more vendors, things like that, more venues, even all of that kind of stuff. So that was kind of fun to kind of figure out the nuances around that strategy. And being new to me too, like I didn't have, you know, I didn't know anything going in, so that was kind of a fun. And then when we did Missouri, we actually had I kind of used the same concept under Colorado because again, we kind of was kind of brand new to us, you know, from that sense. So the biggest thing is really just to check out, you know, you can probably in one area, like Iowa's pretty small. Like that was we were in the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City area. And so there is probably, I think there's 120,000 people, 150,000, something like that. So it's pretty small.
Yeah.
And we were able to take that to about 3 photo booths max. And I always like to have kind of, and we were renting out about 2 on average a weekend. And then sometimes we were doing 3, but I also always like to have just a backup because we were doing so many. So that was kind of the max. So if that kind of gives your audience a little bit, you know, their population size on maybe what they can do. That was kind of the sweet spot is what I felt like we were doing.
Yeah. I like that you brought out the population because that's actually one of the things that we look at. You know, people sometimes when they come to buy photo booths from us, they're like, oh, well, it's saturated, you know, but if you look at you know, it's relative to which city you're in. And you know, you started off in a smaller population area. We had a customer start off in El Paso, and you know, I don't know what the population is there, but it's not very big. I probably think it's probably similar to that. You know, and he did really well. So you can come into these smaller cities and really like, you know, plant your flag and then set up shop and really have a thriving business there. I find personally that the smaller cities, while they do have some competition, maybe the quality of the photo booth or the equipment that they have is not the best. So when you really invest into something good and you bring it into the town, like really kind of takes off.
You
So
you can create that wow experience. So that's kind of what I kind of teach within my marketing side is um, figure out how you're different, how you're going to be different, and then create that wow experience around it. And if you create that wow experience around it, you're going to stand out and they're going to be like, hey, you know, they're most likely going to choose you, even if you're a little more expensive, because you've got that experience. And that's what's fun with photo booths is you can create an experience. You can have fun with it. You know, whether it's your, you know, just your, you know, part of your personality and things like that and how you, you know, interact with the guests, or if it's your whole setup that you have, like the photo booth that, you know, the professional photo booth, maybe you do some fun things with red carpet and, you know, like, things like that, you can really have some fun with it. So you know, you create that experience around it for your, and the thing is too, is when you're smaller, I think you can get more traction faster actually. So that's what I found is because I was smaller and I was from there, I obviously kind of already knew some venues and things like that I could then reach out to. Not that I knew the context there, but I already knew the area. And so I could get more traction faster because I was able to, it just wasn't as big. So I think that so you're able to spread your name a little faster too, because you had more, there wasn't as dense population that, you know, from that sense. So, so I highly recommend like photo booths, even if you're in kind of a niche little area.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this? I've been thinking about this lately. Do you think people are willing to pay more for a better quality service?
Yes, I would say yes. The one thing with photo booths that when I was getting into it is I wanted it to make sure that it was professional, classy, that it was going to work, that it was, because obviously it's a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a, you can't redo it, right? When you
Right.
go to these events, there's no do-overs. So we want to make sure that it works. And so that was one of my big things when I was researching them, was just to make sure that all of that was up to par, I guess, is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to chintz on it, because if you're chintzing on it, then it's probably going to break somewhere. It's going to cost you more money down the line, bad reviews, things like that. So you want to invest in it in the front end
Yeah.
if you're serious about the business. And then it will be there to last, and it'll make you money, and your customers will be happy, and all of that good stuff. So yes, they're definitely, and when it comes to events and services too, people are willing to pay a little extra because they want that wow experience. They want that entertainment for their guests. And the one thing that I love, that from a sales, I'll give you a sales strategy to your audience for the photo booths that I love to use in my business is a lot of times people see it as kind of an extra cost.
Mm-hmm.
And what I usually will say is, we have brides, grooms that'll use it as their guest favor
Mm-hmm.
instead of buying favors for their guests, because a lot of times favors end up costing $500, $1,000. They're quite expensive by the time you buy something for everybody,
Yeah.
and then it usually just gets left on the table anyways, or it gets eaten right away. It just
Right.
doesn't really do the wow factor. And so my brides grooms will do photo booth instead and invest that money in that, because then people can come through, they get the strips or however, whatever type of photo booth you have, and they get that experience, which is much more valuable and memorable than that favor.
Yeah. Um, so what the people that you're working with right now, what are some of the things that they're struggling with, and how have you helped them like kind of get over it?
Mm-hmm. There's really two main pieces that I hear a lot. Is the first one is, how do you get more leads?
Yeah.
Everybody always wants to know, how do I get more leads? And there's a couple different ways that you can do that. With the photo booth side, a lot of times you can reach out to some different venues and find out, make those connections with them, um, and see if sometimes they'll have their preferred vendor list, things like that. But you can see if they have connections, because a lot of times they don't have photo booth um, vendors on those, I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of have that sweet spot of maybe coming in and being that photo booth vendor. The other thing is I do love wedding expos. And wedding expos, that was the very first thing I did when I got into my business, was I did a wedding expo.
Mm-hmm.
And before I even did anything else. And I loved that because I was able to get so much information by talking directly to the brides. I could see what they were asking me, what were they
Ah,
interested about. I used it as market research. I sold stuff
okay.
too. I
I
sold
like
brides,
that. Yeah.
but I used it as market research because I was able to get in front of 200 brides, right?
Right.
And I could be like, what are they asking me about? What are they interested in? What did they think of the price? It just gave me so much knowledge. And I could also then network with the other vendors. So I got to meet a ton of people in the arena as well. And the one thing with photo booths then too is they can actually see your product and they can use it. So you have it set up that they can use it, and it creates that experience, and they're like, hey, I need this for my wedding. So that's also the thing is if you can grab them and get them into your world of what you offer, they're going to be like, hey, this is so cool. Like, yeah, I want this for my wedding. So that's the other thing for the photo booth side for expos that's nice is that you can actually showcase your product. Like photography, it's hard because it's kind of like, oh, here's
Yeah.
what my work is, but it's
Right.
not you. Where that's the experience that you get to see. So that's where it's fun with photo booths, and why I like wedding expos for photo booths, because you can just do like your 10 by 10, 8 by 8
Yeah.
booth. You don't need a lot of, you really just bring your setup. You don't need a whole lot, you need your signage, obviously, of who you are, business cards, brochures, whatever it is. But you don't need a whole lot because you've already got it all with your photo booth, your props, all that kind of stuff. So there's not a lot of investment there for you either. So it's really your wedding expo cost, and then those few miscellaneous things that you need from the marketing side. But so those are really the two things. If you're looking to try to really gain some traction right away, I would suggest doing a wedding expo. And then also and if it fits into your budget, do a few of them, and you'll find out. And that's kind of what I did. I did several of them, and then I figured out which one gave me the best leads, or the best brides and grooms. And then that way I was able to then look at it for next year and go, okay, I'm going to do this expo again, but I'm not going to do this one. And the one thing too is when you look at wedding expos, if they charge for the wedding expo, it's probably a little bit of a hotter lead than if they don't charge. So as people are looking at the wedding expos, I know sometimes they're like, oh, well, the free one's probably better. Not necessarily, because you're just getting a lot of freebie seekers. And so then you're wasting your time maybe on these people that really aren't, interested. So they do have to pay and usually it's like maybe $5, $10. It's not really expensive, but it's enough that it makes them go, okay, yes, I'm really still looking for vendors. Yes, I want to go and like see what's there, that kind of thing. So I usually have found the ones that have paid admission is a little bit better quality leads, and I book more off of those than I do off the freebie ones. So that's kind of another little tip there that I've noticed as I've done it.
Cool. And then when you're networking with the other vendors and stuff like that, like what are some of the like you go up to someone like, hey, what are some of the things that you say to them? Like how do you strike up a partnership with them?
Yeah, so I'm pretty down to earth person. I from Iowa, so I'm just kind of a Midwest girl, and so when I go in, I'm just like, hey, I'm new to the industry, just be real, be you, because people want to work with other real people. Like they don't want to work with they just want to work with real people. So just be you, and just tell them your story, tell them why you got into business, that it's okay that you're new. And people like that. Actually, they like that. They'd like to support other new business owners a lot of times. And so it's okay. You don't need to be like, oh, thinking you need to have been in business for years before you can do this. So just go and, tell them your story, why you're doing what you're doing, and, how maybe you're different, so you do your market research, figure out your competition, and then kind of you can figure out your pitch on how you're different from maybe, somebody down the road, and why they might want to work with you. Have your business cards on hand, have your brochures that if they're interested in, having any of those. And then what I really like to do is afterwards, I will go and follow them on social media. From my business company, from my, and my personal side usually, but I'll follow them from my company, and then they'll usually follow me back. And then I'll start engaging on some of their posts on social media as well. And that helps me then stay in front of them in a non-pushy way. So then they're going to be like, hey, yeah, I met them at the, wedding expo. And you're not going to comment on every post, and you're not going to like every post, but just kind of randomly you'll go in there and kind of comment and like a few posts and things like that. And eventually they'll kind of start to see that. And then you can kind of make another connection maybe down the road again, and they'll remember you. And they'll go, you know what? They're still in business, or they're really passionate about this, because even if you said you were newer, they're like, hey, they're still here, they're still working their business kind of thing. And so it's just consistency and staying in front and being top of mind. And so there's some strategies that way that you can do as well to just kind of stay top of mind like that aren't slimy, sleazy, pushy way. So that's the other thing that I'm big on, is making sure, we just want to be classy in what we're doing. And because if you're pushy and things like that, they're just gonna, block you off kind of, and be like, no, we don't want, we don't want anything.
Insurance salesman.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Every
Mhm.
networking event I go to, there's like always 25 of those people there.
Yes, yes,
Love
exactly.
them,
Yep.
need them,
Yep.
but
Yep.
you know.
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, I like the thing that you mentioned about telling your story that you knew whenever we went to, I think it was in like our first year we did an expo and there was a venue across from us set up and started talking with them and they just took a liking to us and we ended up getting on their list and then just doing a ton of business for them. Like every
Mhm.
month they would give us 2 or 3 events. They ended up
Yep.
rolling us into their own packages, and then they would
Mhm.
just, we gave them like a flat price, and then they would just give us like consistent business.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
always a good.
That's Yeah, that's where photo booths are really nice too. Because yeah, if you can get some of those partnerships, because the bride isn't always as concerned about the photo booth side, so they can really wrap those into the venue side, and the
Mhm.
venue can be like, "Hey, it's just already included," and then you just get that repeat business, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then going back to the first thing you talked about, the equipment, make sure the equipment's working. I laughed about that
Mhm.
because our first photo booth that we tried to piece together ourselves,
Yeah.
we ended up buying an all-in-one computer and it overheated at the event
Oh
and
no.
the touchscreen stopped working. So luckily it was just like the touchscreen stopped working, the computer was still operating, and we had to like use the keyboard to like operate it. Luckily we had a wireless keyboard at that
Yeah.
point. So
Yeah.
yeah, the stuff about investing, in good equipment. I mean, like you said, luckily we were able to get through that event, but it could have been bad, and
Hmm.
we're not going to redo a wedding,
No, no,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we actually separate the computer and the touchscreen now on some of our
Hmm.
booths, and the other ones we use like Surface Pros. But yeah, that's a good point there. So on the
Well, and
sales side of things, yeah, go ahead.
that's where you as the expert have built them. You know what to look for. You know what
Right,
has failed in the past. So you've troubleshooted it. You've, tested it. That's what's great about buying a professional one, because you guys have, trial and error to know what's works
exactly.
and what doesn't. And so, not saying things still don't break or things still don't happen,
Right,
but you're just less likely for those things to happen.
exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the sales side of things. So, what's your process whenever a lead reaches out to you? Like, what
Yep.
can you walk through a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I have a lead that reaches out, it's usually comes in through my website,
Hmm.
for the most part. And I usually try to get back to them within about 5-10 minutes. I'm usually pretty quick. I'm usually always kind of on that email to make sure if as
Yeah,
leads come in. So the quicker you can get back to them, the better, because it's on their, top of mind for them. So
right,
they'll be like, hey, and then they'll say, wow, that service was, amazing. Like I've reached back out to people within like a minute of them, and they're like, oh my God, that was so quick, and then I booked them within 15 minutes.
right,
So that's one of the huge pieces, is to follow up as quickly as possible. I know some people have other jobs and things like that, so that's not always feasible. Um, but just follow up as quickly as possible. Then if they usually, within my contact form, I request, I don't have a lot of information because I don't want to make that a huge hurdle. So I
hmm,
have their name, the date that they're looking for, the location, their email address, phone number, if I didn't say that. So and then if there's anything else they want to tell me. So I kind of keep it simple. And then if they give me a phone number, I will actually usually try calling them right away first. Um, Again, because it's on their mind. They're most likely on their phone when they submitted it anyways. And a lot of times, I'd say 50-50 whether they answer or not.
hmm,
Because sometimes people are, they're like, I don't know this number, so they don't answer. And then what I usually will do is I'll leave a voicemail and just say, hey, who I am. And I'm going to follow up with an email.
hmm,
And so then I'll follow up with an email to them. And then, usually they'll respond back, or maybe they were on their break real quick and they had submitted it or something,
hmm,
so it's not always that they get back right away. But for the most part, when they inquire, and if I get back to them pretty quickly, they end up booking us, I found.
hmm.
So what I'll then do is I have a follow-up process where I follow up a couple other times if they don't follow up, and then I put them into my marketing funnel where they get my newsletters and things like that as far as that goes. So I try to find out as far as photo booths go, because we only offer one photo booth, so I don't have a lot of options, options from that side. But some
Mm-hmm.
people might have multiple different photo booths, the mirror photo booth, the standard, whatever it is.
Mm.
So you might need to talk to them more to find out what photo booth they're interested in, so
Mm-hmm.
that you can then move that conversation along. And you can do that through email and kind of find out what is it that they're looking for. I always like to end my emails with a question. So the very last thing before my sign off, my name or whatever, is a question, because then that way that directs them to know that I'm expecting a response back. If
Mm-hmm.
you end it with a statement, then they think you're not, even if you vary the question higher, that's the last thing they read. So
Right.
always end your email with a question. And then that will help get you more responses and get more engagement, because people don't necessarily want to be rude. So they'll feel like they should respond back if you kind of do that strategy. So um, that would be the one thing that I would recommend as well.
Yeah.
So you can, be like, hey, if you offer multiple photo booths, you can be like, hey, is this, are you interested in, do you know which photo booth you might be interested in? And then you can give them the options. Make sure you give them the options, because we want to make whatever that question is as easy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that way it'll just you'll get a better response rate if you make the question easy. We want to make it one that they have to go research, or one that they don't know, just something that they already probably know, and that um, that they can answer quickly.
That was amazing.
Good,
Uh,
good. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, I've been doing sales for a long time myself, and people just, the way the world has gone now, it's like automated and, waiting and all that stuff. I'm like, hey, a lead
Mm-hmm.
comes in, you get on it.
Yes. Yeah.
We just got back from a marketing mastermind, and we had a sales trainer there that was talking. If you get back to them within 5 to 10 minutes, I mean, the chances go up at least 25 or 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way they
Yep.
don't have time to check out the competition.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they are, sometimes
Yeah.
they're searching it, right? And they're sending
Right.
in multiple inquiries. And with photo booths, you know, again, you have your own differentiators, but the brides couples aren't as concerned a lot of times about
Mm-hmm.
that service. They just want the service. And
Right.
so that's the other piece on why the photo booth site's so important, to get back to them so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, like, I think I had one time where I was busy and I didn't get back to them, and I think it was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours or something like that, and I got back to them and they were like, oh, we already booked somebody.
Mm.
So that tells you like how quickly, because as brides too, I think they're trying to check some stuff off
Right.
their list, and photo booth might be one of them, that they're just like, they don't need to get a
Exactly.
whole lot of feedback from family,
Right.
the feedback from the groom, things like that.
See if
They
my mom
they
likes
just
the photo booth.
Yeah,
Say
exactly.
yes to
Yeah.
the photo booth.
Photography, DJ, things like that. They need to like make sure, check with others. But photo booth, they probably have a budget in mind of and if you're fitting all the boxes, they're like, yep, let's do it. And that's kind of what I found. Um, so yeah.
Oh, no, I like that. The point of that you said about the list, like, and they probably got 100 things that they got to do, and they need to check off this
Mm-hmm.
photo booth thing, and if
Yep.
you could help them do that and get the DJ and,
Mm-hmm.
photographer, up
Mm-hmm.
lights, I mean, whatever
Yep.
else added to that, that just makes the whole package a lot better.
Yep.
And what's this other thing over here? Okay. Um, cool. So people come to your website, they book you, and you process to them. Any other um, struggles that you see by some of the people that you work with that maybe you want to share?
Yeah, the other big one is content, is
Mm,
figuring out what to post, when to post, how to post, what to write, all of that stuff is the other big
mhm.
struggle from the marketing side. Because years ago, we didn't have to create all that content. When I went to college for marketing,
Right.
you know, you had print advertising and you had, you know, a few, I'm dating myself, but you had, you know, it was more basic. Where now there's so much to it with the
So
social
much.
media side
Yeah.
and websites and all of that stuff. And they're great, but it gets overwhelming, especially when you're starting a business, because you're like, what do I do? What do I start with? Like, and so really you start with your foundation
Mm-hmm.
and then you just build piece by piece onto that. And there's if you start with that solid foundation of knowing your market research, you knowing, you know, how you're different, you can then build that into your website, into your copy, into your messaging,
Mm-hmm.
into your content for social media. So I always say there's a few pieces that you need when you start your business, and that is your foundation. You need to make sure you know what you're marketing, you know, why you're marketing it, you know, what's your differentiators, those kinds of things. But then we need a website. We need, and not just any website, you need, and I always call them a high converting website, because there's a difference. If you have a good website and it's giving them the information they need and it's professional and walking them through the journey with you, and you have your call to action buttons so that they know they can reach out, how to reach out easily, that kind of thing. So a high converting website, and then your social media platforms. And really it's just Facebook and Instagram. And if you
Mm.
want to just do one, I usually say Instagram.
Yeah.
So that's really the those couple few pieces, and then obviously your follow-up strategy you need as well. But those are kind of the few. Website and social media are really your biggest ones, and then your content, figuring out, because you need to post, you need to showcase yourself, showcase that you know the wedding industry, you know, give them some fun stuff to your audience so you can get some followers, things like that. Because if you're showing up on social, are going to be more like, oh, they're in business, they're not doing this for a hobby, they're you can showcase what you do. And that's kind of the fun thing with photo booths, is you can take some videos, why people are using your photo booth, you know, and do some little reel things. You can just do a bunch of different stuff on the photo booth side, but then you can incorporate some of the other wedding pieces or holiday party stuff, like if you're going to do those, whatever, into that content. And so building content is important, but it's also struggle and difficult, and it just kind of, a lot of times people put it to the back burner just because it's not fun, it's just
Mm-hmm.
not something that comes naturally. You really have to take the time to do it.
Cool. So that's a perfect segue into the content club. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So I actually have a Weddingpreneurs Content Club is what it's called, and it's a monthly membership where we give you all the content that you need for that month. And so there's social media posts in there. There is story templates for social media as well. There's the Instagram reel and TikTok concept, the ideas, the audios to use with them, and captions as well. And then we also give you the captions for the social media posts. I forgot to mention that. So, and then we do give you 2 email newsletters that you can, that are pre-written, that are around kind of to send to leads, but there's a few fill in the blanks to make them specific to your business, which is super cool, because our members really love those, because that's always something they're struggling with. Because I
Mm.
always say you should continue to follow up with leads after, even if they haven't booked you, because sometimes with photo booths, I've noticed too, is it's an extra expense in their budget, and they're not sure if they have enough money or not until they maybe get closer to the wedding day.
Mm.
So if you're staying top of mind and you're just sending, and I usually just say every 2 weeks you send an email newsletter, and that'll help keep you top of mind. And they can unsubscribe, obviously, if they're not interested anymore, that kind of thing. But I booked some photo booths with this strategy still, because I was the one that stayed top of mind. And they're like, hey, yep, I do have money in my budget still. Do you have a photo
Oh,
booth available?
nice.
So that's kind of another thing that I found. And then blog posts. And then we include 2 pre-written blog posts. And for those, I always say that it's kind of a starting, I mean, it's a full blog, but I always say to make it SEO friendly for you and to, so that it's not kind of duplicate content, add in your own stuff to it, your own experiences, that kind of thing. So you get all of that in that content club. Um, and and then you never have to start from scratch. So you're able to just kind of pick, you can, the templates are customizable in Canva, so you can change them to your brand, your photos, your videos, whatever you want. So everything is customizable, but you've got that starting place. And people love it because they just swipe up, they're able to just swipe them. And the captions are such a hard thing for people. A lot of times they can do the graphic side maybe,
Right.
but the captions. And so the captions,
Book me
we
now.
try, yeah, we try to be like, we have, yeah, exactly. So we kind of give some value within those captions, so you want to educate your brides, you want to show them that you're an expert in kind of the wedding industry, and that's kind of what we do within the content club. So we set you up for success and give you all of that you don't have to start from scratch, and you can easily swipe and start posting.
Cool.
So yeah.
Well, guys, if you're interested in that, we're going to put a link below that you can check out. And then we'll go ahead and put Carissa's website there as well. If you want to talk to her about coaching or follow her on social media, she's always posting cool stuff. And the Facebook group, you have your own Facebook group, right? Is that
Yep.
just for your customers or is that public?
It's public.
Okay.
Yep. It's
Cool.
public.
Cool.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and link that down there below. I know you're always posting in there as well. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. That was awesome. Really good
Yeah.
pointers that we came out with. I'm sure anybody can get value from that. And if you're already in the business, there's definitely some stuff that can be implemented and get you a lift off there. I like to think of it like, what can we do to increase business that we don't really have to spend money on, right? And even if it's just like, okay, cool, let me get back to the leads in 5 minutes instead of 15, 20 minutes, right? Like, let me set up maybe a text message alert. That way I can, as soon as they go on the website, boom, there, I can call them. That's a big thing. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us today, guys. Check out the links below. This is Josh here with Photo Booth International. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Josh.